everybody, welcome back to In The Huddle. I'm Jillian Kushner. Before you go, please subscribe below and like the Facebook page that's in the description box. And today's Tuesday, so we're going to talk about more like technical stuff. And I thought today we'd talk about how the playoff works in college football because it's new and it's kind of confusing, I guess. So we'll talk about that today, so just keep watching to find out how the college football playoff works. So since 1998, we had something called the Bowl Championship Series, and that went until 2013. So Bowl Championship Series, otherwise known as BCS, was kind of the worst thing to ever exist in football. It was just this horrible thing. I don't know how to explain it other than that. Basically, the BCS hated Texas, so that's why it was so horrible, but it was just a bad system. It was just bad. Like, I feel like everyone hated it. Or maybe it was just me. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure everybody hated it. Really, anything could have been better than that, so now we have the playoff. So like I said, the BCS existed until 2013, so the playoffs first year was 2014. So in the BCS, there was 5 bowl games, and that changed. It used to be 4 up until 2006, it switched to 5. So there would be the Sugar Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, the Rose Bowl, the Orange Bowl, and then the National Championship. Before 2006, there was a National Championship game was one of those bowl games, but then it became like its own separate game. So, for example, like in 2009 when Texas was in the National Championship, it was in the Rose Bowl, but there was another Rose Bowl. Like, it wasn't just the National Championship was there. There was a Rose Bowl game, and then there was a National Championship game. So that's how that changed. There was no real system to this, and that's why people didn't like the BCS, is there was no playoff, and everyone really wanted a playoff. They thought that that's what made sense. In Division 2 and Division 3, they have a playoff system. Really, everybody except Division 1. I mean, the NFL has a playoff. Everybody has a playoff except college football, which was ridiculous. So that's why they wanted the playoffs. The BCS had rankings, and the BCS rankings came out usually in like the 6th or 7th week of the football season, and the BCS rankings are what we went by. So the BCS bowl games were based off of the BCS rankings, which is what will lead us into talking about the college football playoff. So like I said, the first season of the college football playoff was in 2014. And similarly to the BCS rankings, there's a college football playoff rankings. So the college football playoff rankings start in the second half of the season, which is good. That's when rankings should start, because if you look at the AP poll and the coaches poll, which start, preseason through the season, they were really, really off in the beginning of the season. Like, far off. Like, extremely off. So the college football playoff rankings have been better. They're not great, but they're pretty good. Like I've mentioned in previous videos, the top 4 spots in the college football playoff rankings make it into the playoffs. So right now it is a 14 playoff. Like I said, this started in 2014, so we're all hoping that they expand to either 6 or 8 teams, because right now 4 just isn't enough at all. So what happened is they took the BCS bowl games and converted them into the playoff games. So it's still the same bowl sites, really. It's that are used in the college football playoff. The BCS bowl games I mentioned before were the Rose Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, the Orange Bowl, and the Fiesta Bowl. Those bowl games still exist, and now we've added the Cotton Bowl and the Peach Bowl. Those are called the New Year's 6 because they're played on New Year's. But those 6 games are what are used in the college football playoff. The 2 semifinal games in the college football playoff rotate between those 6 bowl games. So it changes every year, obviously, of what the semifinal games are. There are 2 semifinal games, and then there's a national championship game. And they've also changed the trophy you get. Back in the BCS days, there was this beautiful, sparkly crystal trophy you would get. The crystal ball is what we call it, and it's gorgeous. And now we have a trophy, which is still pretty. It's gold, it's nice, but I like the other one better. But that's what you get if you win the national championship. This past week was actually the last week of college football, so the top 4 are set for the playoffs. We already know who's in it. The way the playoff works is 1 and 4 play each other in the semifinals, and 2 and 3 play each other in the semifinals. So the semifinal games will be Alabama versus Washington and Ohio State versus Clemson. And then obviously the winner of each of those games plays each other in the national championship. So the semifinal games, like I just mentioned, the matchups, the Peach Bowl is going to be Alabama versus Washington. Then the Fiesta Bowl is going to be Ohio State versus Clemson. And like I've mentioned before, we have those New Year's 6. So those other bowl games that aren't being used go to other teams in the playoffs. So, for example, there's also the Orange Bowl, which is one of the New Year's 6. And that's going to be number 11 Florida State versus number 6 Michigan. So they're all going to be these top-ranked teams that are in it. Basically the teams that won their conferences and just based off of how their rankings are. So then we have the Cotton Bowl, which is going to be number 15 Western Michigan against number 8 Wisconsin. We have the Rose Bowl, which is going to be number 9 Southern California versus number 5 Penn State. And then the Sugar Bowl, which is number 14 Auburn versus number 7 Oklahoma. Personally, I actually like the playoff system. I just want us to expand it. I think to have only 4 teams play is kind of ridiculous. I think we could make it so there's like 6 or 8 and do like a first round bye for the higher ranked teams, because the main concern with expanding the playoff is that these are college players and the season's already long enough, and to add another set of games for some of these teams would just be excessive. And that's the issue with the playoffs. And if you see it in college basketball, you continue on through March Madness in college basketball, you are adding a lot of games to your season. So it is very tiring. These guys do have, they are college athletes. They're not getting paid for this. So that's why there's the issue with that. Hopefully they figure something out, because there's just a lot of issues when it comes to this top 4 ranking. This year there was a lot of drama around their rankings because Penn State, who is number 5, won the Big Ten championship, which is the same conference that Ohio State and Michigan are both in. Michigan was number 5 leading into this past weekend. Ohio State was number 2, but they weren't in the Big Ten championship game. Penn State was. They're now number 5. They took Michigan's spot, but they weren't in the playoffs. A lot of people thought they should be. I didn't agree, but nevertheless, that was the drama leading up to this. So I think if we made it 8 teams, there'd be a lot more happy campers. You can get in all of the conference champions into the playoff, which would make the most sense. My only issue with the college football playoff is they claim that is the Power 5 conferences get into the playoffs, but there's only 4 spots, 5 conferences. Y'all see the issue there? Yes, that's the issue. So your conference might not be represented in the playoff. Hence the Big 12. The Big 12 got left out this year. Big 12 was in it last year, not this year. It is going to be Alabama's in the SEC, Ohio State's in the Big 10, Clemson's in the ACC, and then Washington is in the Pac-12. So the Big 12 got bumped out this year. Regardless, it just doesn't really make sense. You can't say Power 5 conferences get into the playoff if there's only 4 spots. It's just bad math. So that's how the playoffs work. I really do think this is a better system than we've had with the BCS. The BCS was just miserable. So I think this is the better way to do it, and it really just sets up for a really fun New Year's. Like, that's what I'm doing on New Year's. But that's how the playoff works. I know it can sound kind of confusing. The NFL playoff system is definitely more confusing. We'll talk about next week, as the NFL playoffs have not yet begun because the season's still going on. NFL season is obviously longer than college. So that's it, and you guys can get ready for bowl season because it's going to be fun. I'll be sure to make a video talking about the big games this bowl season, other than those, playoff games. But I think it's going to be a really fun bowl season. I'm excited for it. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on Thursday.